What's up? This is JuJuan Buford, managing partner, JSB Business Solutions Group, co-founder of Next Hop Social, and B2B entrepreneur. And look, it's been a while since the last time we were together. I had to take some time to get my health right, so I got a slight cough. And also, quite frankly, to recalibrate. One of the most important lessons I learned about this social media thing, and I do not position myself as a social media guru of any stretch of the imagination, but one of the lessons I'm learning in my process here is that every now and again, you got to take a moment to recalibrate and evaluate whether or not you're really bringing value to your audience, whether or not you're really helping people. And so I've been involved in that process. And so I'm back again to be more consistent, to give people soul food information they need to continue to grow and scale their businesses. Ultimately, you already know, okay? Our number one goal over the next 10 years is to help over 100,000 households make the transition into successful employers. And of course, I'm fortunate to work with an incredible cadre and just family, friends, individuals who are just committed to the goal as I am. So with that being said, look, what I want to talk about today. Before I say that, look, do me a favor, smash the like button. You see value in what it is I'm doing here. Let the social media algorithm know that the information is helpful, and let's help other individuals level up and grow too. All right. So what I want to talk about today is a conversation that's repeatedly come up from business partners, as well as a couple new clients that I've worked with recently. And the question was, JuJuan, when did you make the transition to entrepreneurship? When did you know it was time to go full time? I thought it was a fascinating question because for me personally, there was no one specific time. It was a process. I'm going to briefly share with you 5 things that occurred, or 5 frameworks that I ended up understanding and growing into in order to prepare me to make the transition into really earning a living being an entrepreneur. All right. So the first thing was I learned the hard way about lost opportunity costs. And what does that mean to me? So I was working at the bank over 20 years ago. Yeah, it was a process 20 years ago. And what ended up happening was I brought in $1 million worth of new revenues, which was a lot of money to a bank, and especially in a poor area I was at in a nuisance area of Detroit. And so I brought in $1 million in new revenues. And the mistake they made at the bank was that they allowed me to hang out with other investment advisors, other bank officers who had their securities license. And quite frankly, I had a chance to talk to a lot of executives. It was kind of weird back then. I was doing like the assistant manager's job, my job, personal banker, licensed banker, and also even sometimes the manager's job because of all the turnover and transition. And so I'm hanging out with individuals and I'm learning what type of income they earn, right? And I'm learning based on the amount of revenues they're brought in, what their bonuses look like. And so when I brought in that $1 million worth of revenues and they rewarded me with a $50 Marshall Fields gift card, I knew that there were other people who were benefiting from my labor who were earning $30,000 off that $1 million I brought in 3 months. And I said to myself, you gotta be kidding me. See, right then and there, when I did the arbitrage, when I began to understand that if I'm being paid 30 to 40, that really means I'm generating anywhere from $90 to $120,000 in revenues. If I'm being paid 100, that means I'm really generating $300,000 in revenues. I began to understand that I was being bought at wholesale and my talent and skills were being sold at retail. And that messed me up. I could not see working at a job the same ever again, because I knew the value I was bringing to the table, right? And so I would not recommend anyone to do what I did, but anyone who knows my story, I quit that job like post haste and started my career as an investment advisor, being a self-employed financial services professional, right? So coming out of the W-2, moving into the 1099 world. And I would not recommend anyone to do that. I do not want people to get it twisted. I'm a huge advocate of entrepreneurship, but look, this is not the movies, okay? People have this ideal that just because you desire, or just because you start up a business and you pray real hard, the money's gonna fall from the sky like manna. It does not work like that. The only place where that type of stuff happens is in Hollywood. In real life, you do not get what you desire. You get what you prepared for. Okay, only place where success comes before preparation, only place where success comes before training is in the dictionary. Okay, just being real. So you need to be prepared for this. You need to sit down and really take inventory of your skill sets, your emotional intelligence, and your ability to persevere. But anyway, discussion, tactics, stuff like that for another discussion. So that was number one. understanding that I was being bought at wholesale and sold at retail and knowing what the arbitrage was. That started the journey. Then I learned another lesson. If it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it paddles like a duck, it's a duck. So I had to start doing entrepreneurial things. Now, fortunately, because of my experience at the banking industry, one of the things that I understood and I learned early on was how to prioritize, right? And I had a loose framework. It wasn't scientific. It wasn't methodical or systemic. But because of everything I went through in the banking industry, I understood there's certain things I have to do on a daily basis to be successful. Certain things I have to do to make this ship run right? For all the different responsibilities I had. And I brought that with me into the world of investment advising. It did not take me long to figure out, okay, I have to learn how to cut that out. Anyway, that's part of the reason I was going for a while too. But anyway, it didn't take me long to figure out that I had to learn how to do exposures. Like I needed to make sure that every single day, new people learned what it is that I was doing on a daily basis. If new people were not learning what I'm doing, I'm dead in the water, right? So I knew that was an important piece. The other piece I understood is that if I was sharing the information correctly, if I was being interested as opposed to being trying to be interesting, like really putting myself there as someone who could solve your problems, people will lend me their time so I could actually give a presentation. So not only simply learn who I am and what I do, but actually learn why I do it and how I can be effective for them, right? So giving a presentation under favorable circumstances, whatever tools that you're using to do that. And then I also learned that your punishment, the cold calling was your punishment for not asking referrals. Bottom line is the quickest route to a destination is a straight line. And so if I don't have to spend money on advertising, if I'm spending an inordinate amount of money on whatever it is people spend money on by simply asking referrals, I can build my business very effectively that way. So there was a book by Bob Berg I remember reading early on that really helped me out called Endless Referrals. Definitely recommend that book. And I knew those were the three KPIs, the three revenue generating activities that would ensure that I could actually generate revenue on a regular basis, right? Which leads to number 3. I learned that the consistency of my income was found in my process. And my process was getting up and making sure new people understood what it is I do on a daily basis. My process was making sure that presentations were somehow taking place, so people were actually being educated more specifically about how it could be of service to them. And then, of course, if I'm doing presentation under favorable circumstances, I'm proving value, I'm providing solutions, I can ask for referrals, right? And then referrals are a lot easier to deal with. Got another training on that. I may actually link it in this, but the bottom line is I was asking for referrals, which was growing my client base without running myself into the ground, right? And I was getting referred to more and more people who I actually wanted to do business with, my target market, right? I just wasn't chasing any and everybody. So 3 was, over the course of time, understanding that my process is what set me free. And this is so important because oftentimes entrepreneurs will ask, well, look, I got this consistent income from my job. I say, you think it's consistent, right? We've all learned over the last several years that job security is an oxymoron. There are very few people who have something called job security, very, very, very tiny, minute amount of people. And even they really don't have security they think they have, right? And I can make the argument that, quite frankly, my process is more reliable than any job. My process, right? But the assumption is you're actually doing the process, right? So oftentimes when I'm dealing with entrepreneurs, my experience has been, and what I've been taught, even personally from mentors of mine, that either you're not doing it right or you're not doing it enough. Not doing it right is easy. Read, learn, seminars, get around other people who are having success, be humble enough to ask questions, get the information you need to sharpen the saw and get better at the game. Not doing enough, that's on you, right? So you're not doing enough. So there was a ratio that I learned that was became part of my process. The 130, 10, 3, 1 ratio. What is that? 100 dials, 30 people will pick up or be receptive. And it can just not even be, and when I say dials, I'm talking about 21st century right now, also reaching out online. The bottom line is I know if I reach out to 100 people, I know 30 of them will be receptive to my message, assuming I'm really showing interest in them, right? And helping them in their problems. And out of the 30, that will allow me enough time to introduce what it is I do, or at least introduce myself to them. 10 may schedule an appointment. Cool. But out of that 10 to schedule an appointment, we know people cancel. We know people reschedule, right? If you are crushing it, 7 out of 10, 70% of your appointments stick. If you are, you got to be a lead, for real. I'm just letting you know. If 50% of your appointments stick, Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. That's kind of where I'm at. About 50% of my appointments stick. So from random people go to my Calendly that I don't know to people who reach out to me and we say, yeah, let's hook up. Let's set this date time. And they may or may not show up. All that fun stuff. And then, of course, even the people I have relationships with who sometimes, hey, bottom line is for most people, if the whip ain't being cracked by the boss, they don't show up. I know that probably hurt, but it is what it is. Even entrepreneurs walk around with that mentality, even still. So the bottom line is 5 to 3 people keep the appointment, really 3, right? If I want to just lowball, 3 out of 10 keep the appointment. And then if I have a chance to present to 3, one person, about 30% will get the service or product that I'm offering, assuming it's actually meeting a need, right? There's real value there. And so that's my ratio, that's my process. And so I know when I wake up in the morning, I need to be on pace for 100 for that day, whether it's utilizing content like this, whether it's posting other information, things that I learn that I think could be of benefit to the entrepreneurs that I engage and deal with, fortunate enough to serve, whatever the case may be, picking up the phone, sending out text messages. I'm taking aim at 100 people. Do I always get there? No, it's a problem. But anyway, I'll come back to another time. But 100 people, I know per 100 people, I'm gonna get a client. That's all it is to it. So 100 attempts to reach out to people, 30 actual exposures, people who are willing to take the time to learn what it is I'm doing, right? Really, really learn. Schedule the appointments, 10 appointments. Let's say 5 to 3 stick, get 1 client out of it. So that's the process, that's the ratio. And I've never, in 20 years, I've never met anyone who consistently did that for a period of 60 to 90 days who did not start generating considerable income as long as they were in a legitimate business. I've never seen it. I've never seen anyone not earn income on a consistent basis with that. Now, it might not be the amount of income that you earn, and maybe that's your product or service, you're not charging enough, but you're gonna earn income, you're gonna have consistent business, right? The bottom line is I've reached a point in my entrepreneurial journey where I get scared. I get very nervous, almost terrified if I'm not in a situation on a daily basis where new people are learning about my business. I get terrified. I get a real sickening feeling in my stomach. And it's like, I don't even need to think about it. Midway through the day, what's going on? Oh, I've not been doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me get on these phones. Let me get on these text messages. Let me send out some content. Let me engage with people via social media. Let me follow up with some individuals who I may not have followed up with that came into my network. The bottom line is that's where your consistent income found. So once I wrapped my mind around that, I did not concern myself with whether or not I'd be profitable anymore if I was doing the things I was supposed to do, right? And now it's like quack like a duck, walk like a duck. I wake up without even thinking about it. I'm gonna get in a handful of exposures. Doesn't matter if my day goes to hell in a handbasket, a certain number of people are gonna learn about what it is that I do. All right, so the next step 4, I guess. Not I guess. Step 4, self-concept, right? There's a point in your journey where you go from I'm gonna try this, I'm doing this, to I am this, right? And self-concept is when I also knew I was ready because I became an entrepreneur in my thinking and how I perceived myself. I'm looking at my 1-year goals. I'm looking at my 5-year goals on a consistent basis. I'm reverse engineering on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. My goals and my objectives and the things that I thought about most were all revolved around my success as an entrepreneur. And the bottom line is if you're involved in that process long enough, that's what happens. I tell people all the time, part of the reason why most people don't start or they false start as an entrepreneur is because you don't have a clear destination. You don't have a clear destination where you're going. I know where I want to be 5 years from now. I know how much income I want to be earning. I know what type of business endeavors I want to be involved in. I can even think about the type of clothing I'll be wearing, where I'll live, the type of car I'll be driving, where I'll be vacationing, right? I can see all those things clear as day. I can see the residence, how many bedrooms, what the kitchen looks like. I can literally see my goals being achieved, right? Instead of 5 years, 10 years, right? 100,000 households was one of the goals to help over 100,000 households make the transition successfully into entrepreneurship, right? That's a goal. And I think about that every single day. Like I look at it every single day. I'm writing my affirmations every single day, right? And something happens when you're setting goals, when you remove the fog, so you're not false starting, right? So you're not waking up in the morning and it's foggy, it's rainy, you can't see 3 feet ahead, so you're tentative. You're scared. You might hit somebody, somebody might hit you, right? Because you don't have a clear sight, clear vision in terms of where you're going. The goal setting is such an important piece of that. So having 1-year goals, 3-year goals, 5-year goals, a 10-year vision, right? Knowing specifically where you're going to be. What are you taking aim at? What matters most to you? What are your values? What are your core focus? Who do you want to be serving? What is life really going to look like? You have to basically recruit yourself to become the future self that you want to be, right? Decide, be, do, have. You got to decide who you want to be. You have to be those things. The attitude comes for the altitude. The success that you're looking for, you got to be the person that is deserving of that success, right? And 1 year and 5 year and 1, 3 year and 5 year goals help you conceptualize those things crystallize. And once it's crystallized in your mind, it starts to impact your self-concept. You stop thinking about these are things that I do, and you just get up and do it because you're taking aim at the person you want to be, and you reverse engineered it, right? From your 5 year to 3 year and your 1 year. And then between your affirmations and between making sure that every single day you are very purposeful about how you're spending your time. Like one of the most important questions you can ask yourself is, what are the top 3 to 5 things I'm going to do to make today a masterpiece? For me, when I say masterpiece, what are the top 3 to 5 things I can do to move the ball forward, to make sure that I'm able to do more, go further, go harder, have more resources, leverage my money better, leverage my time better? What are the 3 important tasks that I can accomplish in a given day that will get me closer to where I want to be 10 years from now? And there's no fog, so I know specifically what those things are, and I write them down every single day. It's a question I ask before I go to bed. Not frequently enough, but definitely every single day when I wake up in the morning, those are the things I'm looking at. And I take aim at those things. And if the rest of the world goes to hell in a handbasket, I've still accomplished those things, so that means I've moved the ball forward. You're not going to accomplish them all every single day, but if you write down a list of 10 things, you got your top 3 at top that will make the biggest difference. You knock out those 3, you eat the frog first, and then your ball's moving forward every single day, right? So I didn't want to get too tactical, but I thought this piece was very important because these are the habits. This is how you create self-concept. And once you create self-concept, it's just like breathing, right? You don't wake up in the morning thinking, am I going to breathe today? I'm going to try to breathe today. Maybe I'll breathe today. You don't think maybe I'll have success. Maybe I'll try to do this entrepreneurship thing. Maybe I'll put forth 100%, even if it's 100% in 10 minutes of time, or 100% in 2 hours of time, or 100% in 5 hours of time, or 100% in 10 hours of time, or 16 hours of time, depending on what your situation is, right? You might have kids, responsibilities, multiple jobs, et cetera, when you're making this transition. But you make the decision that just like you are going to breathe today, right? You don't even have to think about it. You don't think about, you're going to do what's necessary to be successful in terms of your entrepreneurial endeavor. Okay. So last framework or concept that I'll share that really served me when I knew I was ready to make the transition, and when I did make the transition, right? Going through this process where I became an effective entrepreneur, somebody who's able to generate revenues as an entrepreneur and do the things I need to do to meet my goals, right? Financially and otherwise. So YouTube, social media. For me, YouTube is pretty much it, which is interesting. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, but I love YouTube in terms of the content that I search for and I look for. And I'm not on YouTube playing around. I'm on YouTube to listen to people's language, to listen to their approaches, the tactics, to listen to the people who have what I want, right? I want you to pay close attention to that. Listen to people who have what I want, people who are doing the things that I want to do. That's what I use YouTube for. And that was also part of me sharpening the saw, self-concept, being able to imagine and using fodder from different resources to help me curate the life I want for myself, to know what's possible and to open my imagination, right? So I watch YouTube content, and every now and again I cheat like everyone else, but for the most part, if I'm on YouTube, it's to learn something. I'm listening to people's language, their approach, how they go about conducting their business, how they communicate their value prop. I'm listening to how they turn over new business, right? Acquire new clients, get referrals. I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm looking at the strategies they use in terms of how they present their value prop, right? That's what I'm on there doing. And I'm only paying attention to people who have what I want. I'm not looking at, I'm not an entertainer, it is what it is. So I'm not spending all the time, I'm probably not gonna become the best singer on the face of the earth. I'm probably not gonna become a break dancer or any of that stuff. It's just, at this stage of my life, it's probably not going to happen. I'm not spending my time looking at those people. I'm just not. I don't knock their hustle. I'm glad they're having success, pursuing their dreams and objectives, but that's not serving me, right? So I'm not on there looking at sports athletes all day long, dribbling the basketball, throwing the football, or javelin, or whatever the case may be, because I'm more than likely not going to achieve success doing those things. I'm only looking at paying attention to the content that really serves me, that helps me become the person I want to be 5-10 years from now. That's a huge piece. They say you are what you eat, you are what you think. You got to be careful. You got to guard the gates. Be careful about what you're letting into your cerebral cortex, because what you think about, you will bring about, right? And that's the other piece, right? I knew I was ready when I was willing to guard the gates. There's just certain conversations I won't have. There's certain arguments I won't get into. There's certain things I just won't spend my time on. Like unnecessary stress, conflict, things that aren't of value, or like I'm allergic to them, right? And so I'm very careful about what it is that I consume. Very, very, very careful. And these were the steps that put me at a point where I knew I had made the transition in terms of my habits, in terms of my mindsets, in terms of my thinking, my daily modus operandus, and what I allow into my space. And if you do those things, of course, there's some stuff in between, right? And I could have did a deeper dive, but we're already 20 minutes in. I could have did a deeper dive, but hopefully you get the gist of it, right? Understanding your value, doing the work, right? And curating a process, consistency, right? Working on your self-concept, and then only being very careful about what you allow into your mental space, and which by extension, your spiritual space and everything else. So that being said, celebrate success in advance. As always, everyone have a fantastic day. Goodbye for now.